The Apostles of Sephirah, the group of powerful elves chosen by God himself, versus the Dark Disciples, a platoon of elite warriors from the Spade Kingdom that basks in power handed down from devils. Both the force of antagonists that our protagonists were forced to battle against in back-to-back arcs. And I believe this is actually quite the interesting battle, because it reminds me of some of the best moments of Black Clover's battles, as the Dark Disciples hold a massive power advantage over the Apostles, as they are on average far more powerful than them in stats like speed, attack potency, and durability. Though Licht is probably still stronger than the Dark Disciples. But the thing here is that the Apostles have a slight numbers advantage. It's 10 Apostles versus only 7 Dark Disciples. But also, the Apostles have seemingly much better magic types, as Sword Magic, Devil Light Magic, Dream Magic, Vortex Magic, Copy Magic, and even Mirror Magic are some magic types that gain advantages despite power gaps. And what really is the best magic type that the Dark Disciples have? Skin Magic? Which, don't get me wrong, it is a great magic type, but really, none of the other ones are that great at all. Furthermore, the Apostles have great synergy in battle, playing off of each other with their magics, whereas we've only seen the Dark Disciples fight in solo battles. So, can the unique magics and teamwork of the Apostles of Sephirah overcome the might of the Dark Disciples? This is the question I will seek to answer in this video. Guys, don't worry, I have a lot of other cool videos coming out in the near future. I'm going to be doing Asta versus Yuno once the Yuno versus Zenon fight is done. I'll be doing a video just on how strong Devil Union Asta is. I'm going to do a video on the stage system, and I have multiple theories coming out as well. So stay tuned for those. And also guys, please check out Arto Deburu's store and buy some merch. It'll help support him, and it'll help support my comic coming out, which is 9 Fates. So yeah, go check him out. He has some great merch. I just bought some the other day. I'll show them off to you once they come in. So in this scenario, we're going to go with it. It's an alternate timeline where all the Apostles survived the events of the Elf Saga and reside in Elysia. The Apostles of Sephirah, Licht, post-Dark Elf Patri, Raya, Veto, Fauna, Lyra, Reeve, Droit, Elf Kaiser, and Ron are all hanging out when suddenly the Dark Disciples barge onto the scene. Svenken is in charge of this assault squad, leading the other 50% Dark Disciples, Halbert, Sevois, Hischer, and Robero, as well as the two 40% Dark Disciples, Godaroy and Foil. I'm going to be starting with scaling for the Dark Disciples. As I mentioned, on average, they are far more powerful than the Apostles of Sephirah, with only characters like Licht or post-Dark Elf Patri possibly being above them or near them in power. And it's important to note that feats, power scaling, and the narrative itself all support the fact that the Dark Disciples are stronger than the Apostles. Let's start with the narrative argument first. Let us remember the introduction of the stage system in Black Clover. We are told that a magic stage is a way of measuring the combat power of a mage. We are given good information on the top level stages. In order to keep up with the devil, you need to be stage 1. Thus, the implication is that stage 0 would be able to fight a devil well. And the context of the narrative would then imply that they are using the devil power of pre-time skip Vonica and Zagred as a barometer to measure devil power compared to the stage system. And we add in the fact that the Heart's Queen's entire plan was for team fights to go against these devil powers. So this means we can properly extrapolate to what these stages mean. This means that stage 1 mages can keep up in team fights against devils with the power of Zagred, and that stage 0 mages would actually be quite capable in said battles. Keep in mind that the scaling of stages makes no sense if Lolo is implying that you need to be stage 1 to fight low-ranked devils, or stage 0 to fight well and still not kill them either. It is clear that the stage system comparison she made were for devils like Zagred or the devil power of a pre-time skip Vonica. This is actually heavily supported within itself as well, as the anime canon implies that stage 2 is vice captain level. Keep in mind that senior knight first class and vice captain are the same rank, and basically we know that not a single vice captain, base Longhorse or Kirsch, would not have been able to keep up with Zagred in a team fight. This statement thus implies that Elf Arc vice captains are stage 2, Elf Arc captains are stage 1, and Elf Arc high level captains and above would be stage 0. As even a suppressed Zagred without his grimoire was stalemating sealed Licht, Sharla, and Yami. So the narrative implies that the Spirit Guardians, yes, even characters like Petrolf, should be able to fight well against devils as strong as Zagred in battle. Yet, when the 50% Dark Disciples roll up to the Heart Kingdom, 4 of the 5 Spirit Guardians are defeated without difficulty. This is important narratively because she had just told us that the stage 0s would fight devils well, and she is surprised at how easily the Spirit Guardians were defeated. Those people are this strong, even though they have only been granted a portion of a devil host's power. Thus the narrative implies that the Spade had gotten far stronger than she had even imagined, as she even stated that pre-time skip, Spade would be growing stronger in the meantime. And this means that the 50% Dark Disciples can fight characters who can fight well against Zagred and defeat them easily, which means that at the very least, the 50% Dark Disciples should be relative to Zagred in power. So the narrative implies that the Dark Disciples are stronger than most of the Apostles. Furthermore, if you use scaling from Noelle and her Valkyrie dress, it adds a lot of evidence, as Noelle and her Valkyrie dress is stage 1. A captain of the Spade military with 5% devil power can produce a stage 0 spell. The 50% Dark Disciples are shown to be stage 0 in base, since Zolopetia called them stage 0 before they even activated devil power, and then they use 50% devil power on top of this. Since a base disciple is above a base captain, and they are using 50% to the captain's 5%, then we can actually get to the point that a 50% Dark Disciple is at least 10 times stronger than baseline stage 0, and therefore at least 10 times stronger than Valkyrie Noelle, since she is only stage 1. Because of this, we can also say that 40% Dark Disciples would be more than 8 times stronger than Valkyrie Noelle. Remember, this is pre-time skip Noelle. I already know that a lot of people are going to attack the stage system for scaling the disciples, and saying that it is an inconsistent way of scaling. But it is actually very consistent in scaling within the verse of Black Clover. The main issue that people have with the stage system is a stage 1 Luck holding his own against stage 0 Svenken. The issue here is that we only hear Svenken calling Luck stage 1, and with the context of what he said and how he said it, we can actually just say that Svenken was downplaying Luck, and his statement is kind of irrelevant. If you read the statement, he says, "Teehee, I'm a genuine stage 0. You're a first stage at best," which, colloquially, the type of wording implies that Luck is more likely to be less than stage 1, or at least that there is significant doubt that he is stage 1, and that is coming from Svenken, which we know is clearly wrong, since a suppressed Luck was clearly stage 1, fighting many stage 2s at once, and that was Luck without his reinforcement magic that he learned from Lufuru. When you take all of that we know that Luck, for sure, in his base was at least stage 1, and that he was fighting with his full power against Svenken, and Svenken then implies that Luck is not stage 1, and this is him essentially mocking him and downplaying him, and the fact that you added together that Luck was faster than Svenken, could take hits from him, and could damage him once he outsped his skin protection magic, that means that Luck actually is stage 0, since the stage 1 statement, like I said, by Svenken was just downplay, and he already showed the capability to fight someone who is at least 10 times stronger than base stage 0. Don't worry, I'll be making a video in depth on the stage system in the near future. I just want to rewatch the anime canon to get all points of context for the video. So if you look at it this way, Noelle being a stage 1 further supports the accuracy of the stage system, as she was fighting multiple senior level Golden Dawn elves at once, despite being low on mana. She stood up her captain brother in that fight, and then was bodying Elfana, who was stated to have more magic power than a captain. Noelle was defeating her quite easily. And while Noelle did have the elemental advantage, it is important to note that elemental advantages are not that big of a deal in Black Clover. Sure, they help, but they're not everything. Yami's dark magic was an elemental advantage of Patri's light magic, and he had a physical strength advantage as well. Despite that, he was still going to lose to Patri. Magnus' fire was an elemental advantage over Heath's ice, but it was proven irrelevant. And Nozelle's mercury is weak to fire, to Fauna's fire, yet he was still fighting her quite well. So stage 1 is implied to be at least low to mid captain level, is supported by the fact that Vice Captain is stated to be stage 2, and Noelle is stage 1, and she has many captain level feats. So when it comes to narrative, the Dark Disciples are implied to be able to fight well against Zagred, and when it comes to scaling within the stage system, the Dark Disciples are at least 8 to 10 times stronger than pre-time skip Valkyrie Noelle. But we can use feats from the Dark Disciples to further determine their power. Gadaroy, who is only a 40% Dark Disciple, displays great feats in his fight with Yuno. People generally fail to properly analyze what has happened in this fight to downplay Gadaroy, as they fail to realize that Gadaroy does not even use his full 40% devil power until the very end of the fight against Yuno. When the battle starts, Yuno is only in Spirit Dive 1, though he would realize the power gap when Gadaroy would tank the Spirit Storm, and then Yuno adds Mana Zone on top of his Spirit Dive 1. It is at this point that Gadaroy realizes that Yuno is stage 0. After this, Gadaroy raises his devil power and lunges at Yuno, tanking more attacks and now going fast enough to hit him multiple times. Gadaroy at this point is not at full power and is bullying a Spirit Dive 1 Yuno with Mana Zone activated. After this, Gadaroy unleashes what should be his full devil power, and in response, Yuno activates Spirit Dive 2 with Zephyr and finishes the battle. The important context to the fight is that Gadoroi considers just Spirit Dive 1 Mana Zone Yuno as a stage 0. What this implies is that version of Yuno would be able to fight Zagred well, which we know actually was not even the case in the Elf arc. As in the Elf arc, Yuno needed Spirit Dive 2 and then help from Black Form to Asta to do even anything at all to Zagred. And remember, that Zagred was not near his full power, as he would raise his power multiple times over that arc and gain a Grimoire. That was before he even used his Grimoire at all. So, you could even just argue that Spirit Dive 2 Elf Yuno from that arc was only stage 1, and definitely not stage 0, yet now Spirit Dive 1 with Mana Zone is stage 0. What this means is that Elf arc Spirit Dive 1 Mana Zone Yuno is stage 1 at best, and since Spade arc Spirit Dive 1 Mana Zone Yuno is stage 0, according to Gadoroi, that means that Yuno actually surpasses Elven power in the Spade arc. This is supported by the fact that Belle kept the same appearance in the post-time skip as she did when Yuno was an elf. I went more in depth with post-time skip Yuno's power in my last Zagred video if you want the full rundown. This is relevant because Spirit Dive 2 Zephyr Yuno was able to fight a full power Zagred. Even a full power Zagred with as many spells was not able to fully push Yuno back. While this still wasn't Ant Yuno from Lick and Lumiere, even before this, with Zephyr was able to fight Zagred, who was not yet at his full power. And despite this power of Yuno now, Gadoroi is able to react to a stronger Yuno, and while he was killed, it did not just slice him up instantly. All of the 50% Dark Disciples would scale above Gadoroi, as Zenon even confirmed that 50% Dark Disciples were above 40% Disciples. So, the 50% Disciples scale above Gadoroi. I mean, it's pretty basic, but I do see people arguing that the 50% Disciples are weaker than the 40% Disciples, but yeah, it's pretty much supported and literally confirmed in the manga itself that the 50% Dark Disciples are stronger than 40% Disciples. Gadoroi is above Yuno, who already scales at least relative to Zagred, and then the 50% Disciples scale above Gadoroi. Even Yuno was launching spells that Zagred could not dodge, so that is the scaling for the Disciples. At the very least, they are relative to Zagred, and above Spirit Dive 1 Mana Zone Yuno in the Spade arc. It's important to remember that while Disciples can be killed, the 50% ones will actually be revived due to their curses. Now normally, I would not allow this in a versus battle, but since that was a key part of what made them strong in the series, and the Apostles actually have a direct way to counter it, so I'm going to keep that in this versus battle scenario. So, the 50% Dark Disciples cannot be killed by conventional means in this battle. So now we're going to do the scaling for the Apostles. I actually broke out 3 tiers for them: bottom tier, mid tier, and top tier. And I'll first go over bottom tier and prove that they would just get bodied by the Disciples. Starting with Lyra. Lyra fought Hybrid Charmy and got bodied, whereas a much stronger Hybrid Charmy in the post-time skip fought the Dark Disciple Halibut and had to further enhance her power with Mana Method to actually win that fight. Fauna was getting bodied by Noelle, who, as we mentioned earlier, the Disciples scale way above. Ron is hard to quantify. He was able to steal Yuno's stone, but that was because Yuno was distracted with Raya and Patri, and that was a much weaker version of Yuno than what the Disciples fought. We don't even know if that was Ron's real power, because Zagred was inside of him. At best, we can scale him to Elf Patri, as his spells were nothing to Spirit Dive 1 Mana Zone Yuno, who, as I said, even Gadoroi's would dwarf in power. Rounding out the bottom tier is Droit, who in terms of power could not hold a candle to the Disciples, as he needed the help of Marie to stave off just Black Form 1 Asta from the Elf arc. And Marie isn't an apostle, so she is not included in this fight. Though, if Droit does indeed have access to all of Gauche's spells, it makes this battle far more interesting, as he'll be able to use Mirror Brigade, which can make up to 12 copies of the original, meaning that if Droit used this spell, he would actually be able to make 13 licks appear on the battlefield. In the next tier, mid-tier, I have Raya, who is very weak as well, as he scales below Yuno, and thus Gadoroi as well, but his copy magic makes him an excellent support, as he has healing magic, spatial magic, and even the permeation magic, which can make him and fellow apostles invulnerable to magic, and in this battle has the possibility to touch any of the other apostles' grimoires to take their magic as well, though that would still be quite hard for him to do because of the speed and power of the disciples. I also have Veto and Kaiser in this tier as well, as they were both able to essentially stalemate Fagolion and Mereoleona. Keep in mind that Lyra and Raya, plus 3 other elves, struggled to take down Mereoleona, yet Veto fought her to a stalemate by himself. And since Marion Fuego implied that the other was stronger than the other, we would assume that they are equal. And thus Veto and Kaiser scale way above Raya and Lyra. Kaiser's magic is kinda cool. His vortex magic seemingly disperses magic, and while he could disperse Fagolion Salamander, there are limits to vortex magic, as it could only slow down an ancient demon, and if you can shut off your magic or have two different sources of magic, it is a weakness to it, and the disciples have two different sources of magic. They have their own magic, and then they have devil mana. I think in this battle, he could use it in a supplementary way, in order to suppress the attacks of the disciples, so that they weaken them by the time they reach his fellow apostles. In the top tier, I have Reeve, which is Elf Dorothy. While she isn't as great at using Glamour World as Dorothy, the fact that she can slowly nerf all the disciples at once is a huge advantage in this versus battle, and is the main reason why I have her at top tier. Also for the fact that, because Glamour World is a different world, Megicula's curses do not work there. So in Glamour World, Dark Disciples can be killed permanently. In terms of anything else, she really isn't that great. The things she creates can be destroyed by Magna, so the Dark Disciples will be able to fight off her attacks as well. I also have Patri in the top tier, the one who is a partial Dark Elf. It is hard to gauge his power, but you can't argue he's at least close to his Dark Elf counterpart when using Devil Light magic, though still would be weaker than the Dark Disciples, as he is clearly far lesser than Zogrid. But I still think he would be able to hold his own against a Dark Disciple with his Devil Light magic. And finally, there's Licht, the obvious best of the top tier, by far the strongest of the elves. She's able to fight alongside Lumiere against a suppressed Zogrid. Though this makes it really hard to scale the exact difference between Licht and the Disciples. The Disciples body people who should be relative to a full power Zogrid, and Licht needs Lumiere to fight a suppressed Zogrid. So really, Licht in his own right is at best a bit stronger than the Disciples, at worst a bit weaker than the Disciples. But it's what he can do alongside his companions that make the fight more interesting. Absorbing magic to empower himself, canceling spells with a Demon Destroyer, and of course, his ultimate magic could be a difference maker in the battle. Though I actually have a hard time believing it would straight up kill someone like Svenken, who not only in just sheer power should have durability relative to Zogrid, but skin magic on top of that, which essentially acts somewhat similar to Jack's magic, where it adapts to other people's magic. I'm not saying that Licht wouldn't damage Svenken with it, I'm just not sure that 100% that it would actually kill Svenken. And this is the thing here, is that this feat is actually massively overhyped. Licht did this to a suppressed Zogrid, and it still could not kill him. And people say that this was stronger than Zogrid, that the attack was stronger than Zogrid, but since Licht is not arcane, it didn't kill him. But Licht and Lumiere are certainly arcane, as one becomes arcane through being severely affected by forbidden magic. This is mentioned by the Undine, and Zogrid mentions this about Licht and Lumiere, saying that they can affect the other world, and therefore him, and then says the same thing about Yami chapters later. There's even evidence that those with ultimate magic can kill devils without being arcane, as the Dryad statement says that low devils can be killed with a bunch of mana, but mid and higher devils are an issue. But then luck kills mid-rankers anyways with ultimate magic, so you have Licht being arcane, and him using ultimate magic, and he still could not kill a suppressed Zogrid. Though Licht could still damage or at least knock back Zogrid, and Lumiere can straight up just stab Zogrid. And it is narratively implied that Licht and Lumiere are equals to each other, as there are multiple statements that imply this, and the way they fight side by side adds further evidence. So if Lumiere could just straight up stab Zogrid, Licht should be able to as well. It's just the difference between damaging Zogrid and killing him along with his heart is a huge power gap. So in this battle, as the Dark Disciples are facing off against the Apostles, Reeve notices the insanely high negative mana that is coming from the Disciples' aura. The horns and wings put her on high alert, so she awakens and sends all of the disciples into Glamour World. Sephirah, the Eye Disciple, begins unleashing dozens of eyes across the battlefield and flies away. Gadaroy hurls devil-amped stone magic at the Apostles, but the magic is fizzled away from Elf Kaiser's Vortex magic, who mocks the stone magic, saying that it would never be strong enough to get through the shield of Sephirah. This is where Svenken steps in and activates the full might of his skin magic. His skin magic paired with devil power allows him to walk through the vortex and eviscerate Kaiser with a punch, displacing the shield of Sephirah from battle. With that, the first apostle is down. Gadaroy and Foil would go take on the low tiers, immediately defeating Fauna, Ron, and Lyra with ease. With 4 apostles down, and the disciples yet to slow down from the drowsiness of Glamour World, the apostles realize the disarray that they were in, and Droit takes notice immediately. Looking to Licht, he attempts to activate Mirror Brigade on him. But before he can activate it, Gadaroy lands a devastating blow on Droit, nearly killing him. As Gadaroy leans in to land another blow, he is distracted by a blast of fire that meagerly hit his back, not even singeing a stone. He looks back to see a resurrected Fauna. Gadaroy snorts and just kills her again with another stone spell. When he turns around, he is shocked to see that Droit has completely disappeared from the battlefield. He can't even sense him. as Raya has used his permeation magic on Droit. Now safely away, Foil, Ribeiro, and Halbert were teaming up on Licht and Patry. Raya removes his permeation magic on Droit, and finally, Droit can activate Mirror Brigade on Licht. The now 13 elf chieftains begin to ravage the battlefield, immediately killing Foil, Ribeiro, and Halbert. Though Sephirah has noticed the peculiar situation and snipes Droit and Raya, killing Droit nearly immediately and canceling the Mirror Brigade spell. Before Droit can be fully killed, Raya just barely drags his finger across the grimoire, and just as he comes in contact with it, is punched away by Svenken. While it seems the disciples have cancelled the elves' ultimate move, the disciples begin to realize that they are slowly slowing down, as the drowsy effects of Glamour World begin to take effect. Svenken and Hischer take on Patry and Licht, while Gladeroy takes on Reeve, and Sephirah takes shots at both the battles between the three remaining apostles. Though he is mainly aiming for Reeve, as he notices that his aim is being reduced to the effects of her Glamour World, he begins to miss shots. He has to lower the frequency of his shots to focus on power and accuracy. Finally, thanks to distractions from Gladeroy, Sephirah lands a shot on Reeve and damages her massively, allowing for Gladeroy to finish her off and ruin the Glamour World, ending the ability for the apostles to have even killed Vonnega's disciples, and ending the nerfing effects that Glamour World allowed. Now it's just Licht and Patry against Svenken, Hischer, Gladeroy, and Sephirah. Patry launched a ray of divine punishment at the disciples. Svenken, feeling odd as the attack from the elf was not even close to hitting him, it was revealed to be a part of their plan, as Licht would appear behind them with a Demon Dweller sword and absorb the ray of divine punishment, enhancing its power with his own, and then releasing it at the disciples, killing all of them except for Svenken, who activated his skin magic protection just in time. The skin disciple rushed through the blast and ended Patry's life. Now, Svenken and Licht stared each other down, the last ones left of their respective teams, but Licht's face shifted once he realized the 50% disciple Sephirah and Hischer getting up off the ground, their curse from Vonnega activating, bringing them back to life, as they are no longer in the Glamour World, which negates curses. Licht is strong, but taking on 3 dark disciples at once, who can't be killed, is making it a tough time for him. The 3 disciples were overpowering him, and he kept trying to use the Demon Destroy sword to neg the skin protection of Svenken, but it was not strong enough to actuate such a feat without elongated concentration. But oddly, before the disciples could finish off Licht, the walls of Glamour World slowly surrounded them once more. Licht looked over and sees a dying Raya, gasping for air as he barely casted Glamour World. Raya then activates the light healing particles to heal Licht, and finally activating Droit's Mirror Brigade on Licht once more. Though, because of Raya being extremely low on magic power, only 3 additional Lichts are able to be created from the spell. And the time for Glamour World and Mirror Brigade would be limited, as once Raya finally passed away, the spells would go with him to the next world. So, the 4 Lichts team up against the remaining disciples. Soon, Sephirah is killed, and so is Hischer. But Raya loses more magic, and the Mirror Brigade is now reduced to 3 Lichts, with them now facing off against the lone disciple, Svenken. 2 of the Licht clones stay off the side of the battle and hold up the Demon Destroyer sword and attempt to sever the cause and effect of Svenken's skin magic, drastically weakening it and allowing Licht to freely damage the skin mage. Slowly but surely, Svenken is worn down and finally killed by the Elven chieftain. Mere moments after the defeat, Raya passes to the next world, and the Glamour World is dissolved around them, and the 2 Licht clones disappear, as now just Licht stands as a lone survivor of this titanic battle. So yeah, I think this is actually a really close battle, with the Apostles winning a really close one. This is in part thanks to Licht being in the battle, and Droit's Mirror Brigade, as well as Raya being able to copy magic so he could even use Glamour World if it ever gets negated, use Mirror Brigade himself if Droit ever gets killed. Glamour World is a huge advantage, is a huge thing to deal with as well, because the only real advantage the disciples have is power, and Glamour World serves its purpose of slowly weakening the disciples over time so that their power gap is not as big. There's just so many scenarios where the apostles win, as you could have 13 Lichts doing ultimate magic. That would be a wrecking ball against the disciples. Or imagine just 1 Licht taking the magic of the other 12 Lichts and the other apostles into one even stronger ultimate magic attack. And you could even think of this scenario. Imagine a world, or a scenario, a battle, where Raya copies Droit's magic and they both activate Mirror Brigade. Imagine 26 Lichts in battle. Yeah, that is just not going to work out well for the disciples. So let me know your thoughts on this video down below. thought this was a very interesting video because even though the disciples have a clear and big power advantage, it reminds me of the old Black Clover battles. Like, Veto had a clear advantage over Asta, Fauna, and Fenrir individually, but the three of them teamed up, and with their magic powers combined, they could win that battle. And it's not the same thing here. The Dark Disciples are way stronger than the Apostles, but because there are more Apostles and their magic powers mesh well together, and they have better magic powers, they are able to win this one, but still in a very close battle. Now, there are ways you could actually scale the Dark Disciples way higher than I did in this video, but those really wouldn't be that fair, and they're not as well supported. But let me know your thoughts down below. Hope you guys did enjoy. Leave a like if you did. Comment, subscribe, turn notifications. Hope you guys all have an amazing day. Plus...